Hey everybody, welcome to the REtipster podcast. My name is Seth Williams. Today I have a unique opportunity to interview Alex Reese of Acrewell, which is an amazing YouTube channel. This guy has some super solid videos that I've been watching for the past couple months. When I saw what he was talking about and just the job he was doing, of just making amazing content, I was like, do you want to come on the podcast? And he didn't just say yes. He said, Seth, I want to fly out to Grand Rapids and do this thing in person. And I was like, really? Nobody's ever done that before, but okay, let's do it. And so we're sitting in my backyard right now. He flew here from Philadelphia yesterday, and we're just going to have a little fireside chat. Literally, we're just going to hang out and talk land and talk YouTube, talk about business, life, whatever comes up. So welcome, Alex. Welcome.
Well, Seth, good to be on with you. Thanks for this opportunity. Seriously, it's an incredible opportunity for me. As you know, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've been watching your videos for years. And that's why with YouTube, it's so powerful. And we were talking about this a little bit, which is you feel like you know someone, even though technically you've never met. But I feel like I know Seth. I'm sure a lot of the viewers of REtipster feel the same way because you do spend a lot of time with someone in a way when you watch their videos. And so that's why, I felt like when we were talking last night at dinner, I just felt like this was going to happen. And so that's why when you had reached out to me to come on the podcast, my first response was like, hey, we're doing it in person, man. Hope that's cool. And you're like, yeah, absolutely. It might not have been that forward, but the idea was like in my head, I kind of felt like this was coming around. And if you hadn't reached out to me to be on your channel, I probably would have reached out to you to be on my channel because I've been a big fan for a long time and you're incredibly generous to have me on. So thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the only other time I've done this kind of thing was with Luke Smith back in 2019 when he happened to be in Michigan and he drove down to see me, and Alex was referencing that interview. He's like, hey, Luke did it. How about I do it? So
also, I want to ask you, Seth.
Yeah.
I feel like, does anyone tell you that you look taller in person?
I hear that most of the time.
Guys, I just want to say for the audience, because this is my first time meeting Seth. So for anybody that hasn't met him in person, Seth is taller in person. And I think he's also a little bit more jacked too.
Oh yeah.
I think, have you been working out?
I've been known to work out from time to time.
See, I met Seth at the hotel, in my hotel lobby. We were going to dinner last night. He walks in and I'm 5'10". I'm like average height or maybe even above average. And I was like, damn. So Seth, I don't know if you get that from anybody else, but how tall are you? Like 6 foot, 6'1", 6?
Well, 6'2".
6'2", see?
Yeah.
See? Yeah, thrilled to be here. We can kind of go in any number of different ways. I just want to say, first of all, if you guys haven't been to Grand Rapids, wow, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to I took a video from the plane as we were landing because we were coming under the clouds. And as I could see through the sections of the clouds, I could start to see the countryside. If you've never been to Grand Rapids, I can assure you that you've never seen anything like it. When you're flying into Grand Rapids, it is one of the most beautiful rural areas I've ever seen. It was the perfect time of year too. The trees around here, they're changing color. They're red, they're yellow. It's like the nicest farmland in the world. And I was coming from a flight of people from Philly, and the people behind me in the flight were like, wow, we thought that like Chester County was nice. It's like, this is like something else. And so that was what everyone was saying. So I have a little video. We'll be looping it on this part of the interview so that you guys can see it. But yeah, it's an incredible place. And I just feel like, this was a long time coming. So again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, of course. Maybe we start this from the very beginning. Tell me about who you are, where you're from, like when you got into the land business, how did you discover it? What were you doing before that? A lot of questions I just threw at you, but let's hear about the history of Alex Reese.
Yeah, well, so I'll fast forward to about 10 years ago. I'd always wanted to do my own business, but when you're in your 20s and you haven't really been tested in your career, you have confidence, but it's sort of like a schoolyard confidence because you haven't really been tested. And so the realities of starting your own business are a little bit different from what you've been told on the internet, because you think that you start your company, you get this like you get your LLC on LegalZoom and it's a bunch of confetti and streamers and like some big cardboard check. Like, yeah, man, you made it. But really, it's quite the opposite. The work really begins at that point. And a lot of people that get into land, myself included, come from a place of they just want to make it. They want to be able to build something for themselves. Maybe they're working a corporate job and they make good money like I did, but it's sort of like golden handcuffs, where the further you get into that opportunity, the more dependent you are on it. And so you want to build something for yourself and you want to replicate or even exceed, hopefully, the income that you made before. So that was the case for me. In 2017, I had started a business that was like a 1099 distributor for medical devices. So I was a medical device rep, and I worked with a couple manufacturers. I was trying to sell these tissue grafts, these expensive surgical tools and stuff like that. And I just thought if I worked hard, that eventually something would break on the other side and that I'd get momentum, and I'd had some commissions coming in, but not really enough to live off of it. And so I figured if I just keep my head down and work, that it would work out. But I didn't have a plan. I had no sense of the timeline. I was living off of credit cards. And by 2017, I was flat broke. So I was commission only sales agent, my own company, but I wasn't making enough money to even pay rent on a small 1-bedroom in Philly. So what ended up happening is I was about 40K deep in credit card debt. I remember at that time, I was so broke that I did a lot of my grocery shopping at CVS because I would buy those tins of cocktail peanuts. Mm-hmm. And because it's like the most calories that you can get for if you're broke. For like $7, you can get like 3,000 calories. And I still to this day occasionally buy those at the market. But I remember I would be at the CVS counter to check out, and I'd have like cocktail peanuts and like water, literally. And I would kind of have that poker face. I'd be bluffing. It's like, yeah, like I definitely have room on my credit card, right? And like, I'd wait like for it to go through, and it's like, okay, you're good. Like, chi-chi. And then it would print out the extra bucks, and I'd play it cool then too. Cause I'd be like, okay, extra bucks. And I'd look, it's like, oh, $4? Whoa. What was funny is like, I was at that time, I was like, as far as my career, I was like a 6-figure sales talent. I had made 100K on a sales job prior to that, but I just went into the 1099 thing early without a plan. A couple months of living off credit cards, and you don't have the money to support that. You're kind of on your ass like I was. So then at that point, I got a W-2 job. I was back in medical device sales, and then I started selling life insurance in the evenings. That's a whole separate conversation too. But eventually, fast forward, I get into land. There's a lot of prologue here that's interesting. But when I got into land, it was in 2020, probably largely as a result of your content. I used to watch you every day. I still watch your podcast, listen to your podcast at least once a week, including on the plane ride over. Awesome. And 2020, flipping desert squares in Mojave County. And I'll pause there because that's a starting point that's familiar for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I got started, and 5 years later, we flipped multiple hundred properties. We have a business now that is more focused on media and education. We can talk about that pivot, but I still do land deals. I have land deals in the pipeline now. And so our business has evolved more in terms of education, online education, media. But the land thing that I started 5 years ago was instrumental in building my skill set to where I am today.
Talk about the transition from doing desert squares in Mojave to what you're doing now. So at some point, the idea popped into your head, I'll start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So like, when and why did that happen? Because most people who do YouTube, and especially those who succeed at it, like, it doesn't just happen by accident. Like, you gotta really want it, and you've got to run after it, and it takes months, sometimes years of just like, floundering and not getting anywhere before you actually kind of hit traction.
Yeah.
And you actually hit traction pretty soon. Like, you've got some, what I would call viral videos within less than a year of starting your channel. So
yeah.
Anyway, tell me how the YouTube thing came about.
Well, when you're a small business owner, as you know, and in land investing is no exception. In fact, it's the best example of it, where you do a good deal, you get paid. And at the beginning of your time in land investing, what'll happen is you get started. It'll be hard work, but you'll get lucky once or twice. Mm-hmm. You probably had an experience like that where you'll hit like a $40,000 deal. Mm-hmm. And the money comes in, and it's like, okay, I'm good at this, right? And then maybe you are, maybe you're not, but then reality sets in. And then when you have a couple thin months of slow months, if you have payroll, if you're running direct mail, I mean, you could easily have 20K in overhead without even thinking about it. And when the money doesn't come in, if you're not selling property that month, like you could lose 15, 20 grand quickly. There are months, and guys, this is any business. It's not like a land thing. This is just like a real world small business thing. And every small business owner knows this. People come into this thing about land where it's like, oh, I want to make a bunch of money. And that's great. But the thing is, when you get into business, whether it's land, or if you set up a private practice as a dentist, or if you sell firewood by the side of the road, you have a skill set or you have a business plan and you get started. But the majority of businesses won't break even for at least the first year. And I mean, that's typical. If you're lucky, you'll lose money for the first 6 months of any business. And then the next 6 months after that, you're like kind of breaking even, or there's some positive months. And then on the end of the year, if you break even, I mean, you're killing it. And so at the end of that first year, second year, you're like making less money than all your friends. And so you go through a period of time where you are working harder than all your friends who have corporate jobs that work less hard than you, and they work for the weekends and they go out, they party, and you're just eating dirt. And you're eating dirt for like multiple years. And so if you're doing this thing for money and 10 months in, you're working 65 hours a week and losing money or breaking even and not even enough, you're like draining your savings to support the business. The interesting question is, do you really love it? Like, do you really love what you do? Yeah. Because do you love what you do enough to stick through that period of time, the valley of despair, which you will encounter? Because it's a psychological phenomenon that happens when you start a business and you have a certain expectation. But like I was saying, the confidence that I had was sort of schoolyard confidence. I had not really been tested. Because as an adult, as a kid, I like abstractly, I was like, oh, I have a degree, or oh, I know this, or oh, they paid me this much last year in my sales job. But any gaps in your skill set will be exploited immediately. In the world of business, it's like a mirror in front of you. You will see your flaws up close and personal and high and tight at a level of resolution that you can't possibly ignore. Because if you have holes in your game, if you have holes in your marketing, you'll just lose 18K and no one cares. So you get through that. And to answer your question about the YouTube thing, you get through that. Most people don't, honestly, because they don't love it enough or because they don't understand the dynamics of it. So they'll quit that opportunity, even though they were 6 months away from a profitable business, and then they'll just go to the next opportunity and they start the timer over. So that's
it's an interesting point you're talking about. Like, how do you know when you're ready to go out on your own? Because I look at my story. I actually hung on to my job probably a lot longer than I needed to. And when I finally cut the cord, like, I was more than ready. Like, I never had super thin months when I was starving or anything. But at the same time, like, I was just very scared to make the leap. Mm-hmm. So I think there's that too. And honestly, like, it kind of stunted my business's growth because my job was the bottleneck. Yeah. And I was just clinging to that for dear life because I felt a sense of safety. But I'm curious, like, knowing what you know now and the experience you had, like, what would you tell yourself if you could go back to those years? Like when would you be ready? Yeah. Do you need to totally replace your income and some with your business before you jump into that full time? Or
it's such a good question. There's a lot of angles to it. 10 years ago, I was, I guess, 24. And let's just even less distant in the past. 8 years ago, I was 26. 2017. This is when I was eating the cocktail peanuts and living off of extra bucks on the end of a 35K credit card balance, literally. Any business I started at that time would have failed and did fail. So there's a skill set that you can develop in certain types of jobs at the beginning of your career, which will cut your teeth and give you a well-rounded skill set to start a business. Some of those types of jobs are anything in like sort of like private equity, finance, banking, those like high pressure finance jobs where they just beat you to sleep with work and you like sleep under your desk and you make good money, but you have no life, or you're like living in New York or Chicago, that type of thing. Another one is management consulting, because you kind of learn about how a business works and the mechanics of business. And, 24, 25-year-old management consultants that have 2 years, 3 years work experience, those are actually pretty well-rounded professionals at that age. The other thing is to work at a startup, to work as an early employee at a company that maybe gets venture capital funding, or to work for a local entrepreneur. I think an untapped opportunity is for someone to figure out, like, where do I live? And then who are the players in that market? And then how do I link up with one of those players in that market and just like do what they say? And you'll just by osmosis learn all that type of stuff that you need. Now, most people don't have one of those experiences early in their career. And so I think the best way to start is how you started, and then really how I started too, which is you start it on your evenings and weekends hours, and you just start the business while you have a corporate income that's coming in. You use that income to de-risk the business and to make you emotionally insulated from the success and failure of that company, because there's going to be a lot of failure, and there's going to be a lot of times that the biweekly direct deposit is going to be a really critical lifeline for you when the business is started. It also helps to get credit cards and get some credit facilities at local banks. And it gives you that energy of I'm good either way. It gives you that I'm good either way energy. That I'm good either way energy is the energy that you need to be successful anyway in business. And so what happens is that your schedule, your lack of time constrains the time that you can put in the business, but your income and your corporate job is like the fuel that allows the business to be viable while you're figuring your stuff out. So I think that's kind of the main idea that I would say.
Yeah, totally. So tell me about your first 12 months in the land business. Sounds like you were doing desert squares. Sounds like you were making not as much from land as you were from your job.
No, not at all.
So when did you start exceeding your income, and how did you do that? Was it just doing more volume of the little stuff, or did you like fundamentally switch to different types of properties? Or
Yeah, so I started with the desert squares, and then I did several of them. I still have a land contract. We were talking about that last night. That was back in the day where it's like, it's all about passive income, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
That was like one of the eras of land investing when I got started. And basically, I was working at a startup, and I was living with the early employees and even the co-founders of this healthcare startup that I was working at. We had raised like a Series A or Series B financing, and so the company had a ton of money. And so I had sort of gone without a salary during the beginning of the pandemic in exchange for stock options in a company where we just had to survive. Like all the other businesses at that time, it was like unclear what was going to happen after, or when this thing was going to kind of end. I had lived in a house with like 5 other people, and at that house, we were just working all the time. It wasn't a 40-hour-a-week thing. At a startup, you're working 50, 55, 60 hours. Like, we didn't really have a life. It was the pandemic. So the land thing started for me. I was sending mail. I didn't have traveling mailbox even. I didn't have one of the remote mailboxes. I would send mail campaigns for desert squares in Arizona for like, in Meadview in Mojave County. You know Meadview, right? Have you ever done deals there?
No.
Okay, so it's right up the road from like Lake Havasu City, kind of right near the Colorado River, not far from the road that might be like 83 that goes into Las Vegas. Very rural, like desert, just the epitome of desert squares. But there is a community there. And so I was sending mail campaigns where the actual mail responses would come back into the shared mailbox of this suburban home in California that I was living in with 5 roommates, who I was also working 60 hours a week in a company with. And I would just get these like handwritten like letters from people I didn't even know. They would like sign purchase agreements. So I would like weirdly go out and check the mail every morning. I was like, hey, did I get any mail? It's like, Alex, you're really interested in this mail. It's like, I'm expecting some correspondence.
Hey, real quick, if you're a land investor, you probably know the chaos of juggling 5 different tools just to run your business. One for your CRM, one for your email, one for your websites, one for your calendar. And of course, none of these things talk that well to each other. And that's why I switched everything to Stride. It's the all-in-one platform built specifically for land investors. We're talking CRM, your website, your phone, texting, calendars, email, all the automations you could ever need, and even a ton of helpful AI tools now that can handle phone calls and text conversations without you even being there to do anything. And the best part is, it's all in one place. Since I made the switch to Stride, I've wiped out over $6,000 a year in unnecessary redundant software costs that I don't need anymore. And honestly, you could probably save even more. If you're ready to simplify your business, save money, get more deals, and get a whole lot more done, check out stridecrm.co and see what it can do for you. Again, that's stridecrm.co. Okay, now let's get back into the show.
So did that and did some flips, self-close on a couple of those early flips. And then really the first cash deal, the cash flip that I did, I sent mail into a subdivision in a town called Boiling Spring Lakes, North Carolina. Do you know that town? It's in Brunswick County, and it's not far from the coast. It's right outside Wilmington. That's a town where I saw these big subdivisions. I would send mail back, and I got these responses from my letter campaign in these subdivisions where it was all empty. There was roads, and there might have been power lines, but it was like being reclaimed by nature. And yet, quarter mile down the road in the same town, there were these booming subdivisions where like you couldn't buy and sell property fast enough. You couldn't build homes fast enough. And then I saw these big blank grids in the edge of the town. And I was like, why are there no homes here? There's so much land here. And that's when I learned about soil, because that town had promised or made a commitment to install a underground, sewer line. They wanted to have municipal sewer. They never did that. And so a lot of those lots that came back in that first mail campaign were property that had like an assessed value of 20 grand. I'm looking at a signed purchase agreement for like $4,200. And I'm thinking, damn, like how is this not going to work out? And so what I found was that it didn't perk. You couldn't build. There's no sewer and there's no septic either. It's basically wetlands. But then a better property on a better road in the town, I finally got my first septic permit done on that property. I bought it for, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it would have been something like bought it for $4,500. I probably had $6K in it by the time I closed it. Then I sold it at like $16,500 or $17,500, where on a cash flip, I made like $9 grand. And then I was off to the races. And then I realized it's these cash flips where you're going to make your margin, you're going to make your payback period is going to be better. And so I started in that section in North Carolina. And a lot of people think I live down there because I've done so many deals there that everyone's like, oh, you're local, or like, where are you? Like, I live in North Carolina too. And it was this arbitrary thing of like, I just started sending mail in nearby local areas. And as I started doing that more, it reinforced that pattern, because you get certain economies with local, if you invest in a local market, it's like real estate agents, soil scientists, surveyors, all these types of professionals that you're going to need on a recurring basis. If you can market in the same local areas, it ends up helping you. And to be able to do these deals at volume, because the specialized vendors that you need for due diligence that have the skill set or the local market expertise are there, and you know who they are, and they pick up when you call because they know that there's business there.
Let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs.
Okay.
Have you ever had limiting beliefs?
Yeah, I'm sure I still do.
Yeah. So how do you overcome those? Because I know this is a thing, because I certainly have them as well, probably more than the average person does. And I hear this whole thing about like, that's a limiting belief. Like, you just need to overcome it. Anything's possible. But the truth is, like, not everything is possible. Like, there is truth to some limiting beliefs. And I never really know where the line is, but I probably do draw it way too low. But tell me about your experience with that. Like, what limiting beliefs did you have? How were you punished for those? How did you overcome those? Let's get into that.
The biggest thing when you start with land is, why would anyone sell their property for less than it's truly worth? That's the biggest thing. A lot of our audience on our main channel on YouTube, they're not necessarily land investors. Now, we probably have 20 or 30% that are, but a lot of people don't get it. Is how, if your land is worth $50,000, why in the world would you ever sell it for less than that? And that's one of the things that they don't understand. And so one of the limiting beliefs is that you can't buy land for much lower than the property would sell on the open market. And you absolutely can. We do it all the time. It's a very well documented fact that you can. Understanding why enables you to be confident when you talk to these sellers. Because when I was talking a little bit earlier about the sort of I'm good either way energy, when you have the income coming in and you start this land business or a business on the side as you get started, you know that you don't need that deal. You don't need that deal to work for you to pay the rent. And so what started to happen with me is I started to really be open and honest with the seller, because when I would have these sellers, I would be busy with work. I'd be getting paid a good salary. I'd have other deals, other real estate deals coming in. And I started talking to these sellers from a place of total ambivalence. Like they were like, hey, like, how do I know it's this? Or how do I know it's that? Or whatever. And my whole thing was like, look, the land is worth more than I can afford to pay you. Okay. It's like, cause like if I buy it, I have to make a profit, and like, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But if you wanted to get top dollar, like I can connect you to the local agent that can help you. And to get it marketed, you'll need aerial photos. You'll want to get the soil work done. It'll cost about $1,000. You want to pull a septic permit. That way the buyer doesn't negotiate on that and you can sell it faster. Then you want to list it. When you list it, you're going to have to pay 10% commission to get the right agent on the listing. And then when you do that, you're going to have to wait like 4 or 5 months or more to sell it. And then if it sells, maybe it sells at that price, maybe it sells lower. Then whatever price it sells at, then take 10% off of that and then wait 6 months to a year, and then you might sell for more. Well, or I'll give you $60,000 today. And so when you talk to people and you're just clear, it's like, here's the fork in the road. I'm good either way. I don't need this. Here's what your option is option A, option B. And knowing that you can't control what they say. You cannot control the seller, because a motivated seller is going to want to sell that land to you at whatever your highest and best offer is that's actually real. And if a seller wants to get a good cash number on a piece of land that's worth $120,000, if they want to sell it to you at $65,000 cash, they will. You can't control that. All you can do is tell them, here's the best offer I can make. And then if that doesn't work, I totally understand, and let the chips fall. And when you're ambivalent, that's when they trust you. That's when the best deals come in.
It kind of reminds me of Logan Fulmer in some of like the messy title deals that he does. It's like a similar negotiating thing where when he's talking with people and he makes a really low offer, he talks about, like you can, if you want to go clean this title up yourself, like what I'm going to have to do is I got to do this, I'm going to talk to this attorney, it's going to take me this amount of time. Got to contact all 7 relatives, like just really laying out what a huge hassle this is and how they're probably not going to want to do it anyway. It almost kind of like they make their own decision at that point, but they have to be informed about like the laundry list of items, the reality check of what it really takes to sell this thing for what they want.
Exactly.
So doing that, and also some really powerful words. I might like tattoo this on my forehead. It's just the words, I don't need this.
I don't need it.
Like just taking that stance and like actually believing it.
Knowing it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a similar thing when you're, we talked about before we started recording, you're like negotiation to buy a car at a discount or something. Like you have to be ready to walk away and like start walking away. And walk out the door if you have to, Yeah. So I know I've heard Dave Ramsey talk about this, kind of a different thing, but he was talking to somebody who they were interviewing for a job and they didn't know if they should take it. And he was saying, in any negotiation, the 3 things you want are time, information, and options.
Yeah.
Like just, if you have that, you are definitely in a position of power. And as a land investor or any business person working out a deal, just remember that. Like give yourself time, information, and options, and you can have super leverage in any negotiation.
And whenever you need something from someone, they feel it. And what happens is there's a psychological dynamic of this where when with your friends and family, like when you're trying to get your spouse, your significant other, your friend to do something and you're forcing it. See, we know that we're free to do whatever we want. And so what happens is that when the counterparty, the person you're talking to, is trying to enforce a decision on your part, you can feel it. And it's constraining your freedom of choice and your ability to do what's best for you. And so when you feel that pressure coming in, you naturally push back against it. And that's why when people are attached to an outcome, a seller making a decision, a property, a deal going well, this thing or that thing, when that attachment starts to stick and you feel it and you're chasing it, you naturally create resistance to the things that you actually want to have happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. So tell me about what your land business looks like today versus what it looked like a year ago or 2 years ago. Like, what direction has it gone and why has it gone in that direction?
Yeah. So basically, a good question. I was, as I was getting better at flipping property, at flipping land, I was making less money. We talked about this at dinner last night, and my skills were going like this and my income was going like that. And it's a marketplace dynamic. And guys, understand, all businesses work like this. All industries work like this. There's always ebbs and flows in a business. But I want to go back and I'm going to answer that and tie it back to a question that you asked I didn't answer like a couple minutes back, which is how I got into YouTube. And so what happens is, as a business owner, you're on this hamster wheel of money in, money out on the ads, on your ad spend. And so you're spending money to generate leads, to close deals, to buy property, sell property. But then it's like, how well did that campaign do? And so everybody knows the experience of dropping $10,000 on a mail campaign and being like, well, I hope that goes well, Yeah. Let's see. We'll have to find out. So you're on that hamster wheel, but the best companies in the world have brand. And what brand is people come to you. And so the question is, if you're a small business owner and you're not Nike and you can't spend a bunch of money for TV campaigns, ad campaigns, how do you build brand as a small business? The answer is social media. And then it's like, well, how does that work? And then what about platform? What about content, type of content? You play to your strengths there. So I just picked YouTube. I think and still believe that it is the most powerful media platform. I think objectively, YouTube used to be a slur. Like 10 years ago, you're a YouTuber. It's like, oh, you're just a YouTuber. It is now the biggest media operation on the planet. And it's only getting bigger. It's getting bigger at an accelerating rate. And Mr. Beast in an interview was like, in 10 years, YouTube's going to be bigger than TV ever was. And I think that might be true. But I started creating content because I wanted to build brand, because I didn't want to be reliant on ad spend. And so my thought was, how can I generate the same activity in my business, but with no ad budget? Because if you take out the ad budget, all of a sudden you unlock all this profitability. I was thinking that we would get sellers and deals from YouTube, which is not really where the YouTube audience is. But in any case, I started making these videos and some started working a little bit. And then you start seeing what works and why. And then you start following that. And then once I started seeing what was working, it just took on a life of its own. And then it's sort of like my energy was going into it. Like, you just get obsessed on this next project or whatever the thing is that you think you can bring a lot to the equation, or you think you can build something, and you get wrapped up and caught up into it. And a lot of my energy and focus was going into YouTube. And meanwhile, my income on the land business, like I was making money, but not the way I wanted. And if you're 3 or 4 years into a business, you want to see the income go up and to the right, not down and to the right. And so my thought was like, I feel like I proved the case on land. And actually, even this year, we stopped sending mail. A lot of deals came through. We sold through a ton of inventory, and we had a lot of revenue come in on the land deals. But my thought was like, I like the idea of a consumer product. That's why when I was broke and I went back into med device, I had my W-2 job again, had an income stream. And then I started selling life insurance just to try to make any money I could make, make a name or make a buck or do anything to get momentum and pay down credit cards and try to make it happen. So in a similar way, I wanted to create a consumer product, an education product for land buyers. And I realized that there was really a gap in some of the online education space, because a lot of the great educators like Seth at REtipster and what he's done with his team and his platform is great. And actually, I don't even know the totality of your education and the courses you have and the programs you have. And so, but what I do know, and I haven't taken I probably should, by the way,
yeah,
but the land investing courses on the business side of starting a land investing business, they're really deep and detailed on the actual business mechanics of the land business. How to send mail, how to target zip codes, how to know what property is going to sell for, how to basically power the actual business. But where I saw a gap, and a lot of stuff that I had to teach myself over the years of flipping all these properties, was the actual transaction itself, the actual due diligence itself, how to analyze land in detail, how to analyze online maps, little shorthand systems for knowing what land is worth, how to analyze property quickly to make sure you're not spending time on bad property, how to negotiate land deals, how to make sure you have a pre-closing checklist so you're not going to miss anything expensive. So having sold life insurance, I liked this sort of high margin consumer product, this sort of information or services product. And so I just started the online course, Land Purchase Navigator. It's growing pretty well. The reviews have been really positive. The idea that I can help someone across the country learn the things that I never was taught, that has to have the benefit of information that I never had, is something special. And so I've really seen that happen with the channel. And so I wanted to be able to diversify the land business with a consumer product that solves a specific problem for a specific person at a very deep level. And to do it at a price point where I can tap into a bigger market and have just a product that ultimately creates a revenue stream that's more detached from my time. Because the land market is slow now compared to when I started, and probably when you started, it might have been slow, but there's less people in it. So it was a little different. But all industries have like points of saturation and ebbs and flows. And so honestly, today, as I sit here, is probably a good time to get into land because you can come in with the right expectations. You can build a really lean business. And so I think that when you come in with that expectation, you can really make a lot of money in land, and you can do it pretty quickly. 1 or 2 deals will change your life, as it did for me and probably for you. So that's there. But when I think about where my future is, the problems I had in my land business was never about the real estate. It was always about the operations. It was always about the training. Mm-hmm. Making sure I could get the knowledge out of my mind and to train the team. And so really all the problems I had were solved by education. And I realized that something the universe was trying to tell me was that you need to be an educator and you need to really get out from behind your desk and start to show people how to do this thing. And so that's really where all the subliminal messaging was in my mind. And so that's really where my energy went, into YouTube and then the course and the education.
So this Land Purchase Navigator course, is it mostly centered around due diligence and then the closing process?
It's all phases of the transaction. So it's going to be
like to buy and sell, or just to acquire?
Well, to buy, but when you understand how to buy, you understand how to sell. Yeah. Because when people don't know how to sell land, it's because they don't know how to buy land. So they're reciprocal aspects of the same thing. So it's really what we found out over the years is that no matter what land you're buying, there's really 6 steps that happen in every land transaction. And that every one of those steps has a certain number of requirements of like little sub-steps of like you have to complete before you advance to the next thing. So when you're stuck in the process of buying land, or you're not sure if it's the right land, or you're not sure you have the right due diligence checklist, and you figure out kind of where you are in those steps, you can actually identify specifically, okay, here's where my problem is. So the first 3 steps happen before you even begin the process of buying land. Like step 1 is like you have to know how to read maps, you know? And then step 2 is you have to know what land is worth. So like literally before you even get started, there's foundational education that if you don't have it, you're going to get stuck at a later step. So it's everything from accessing and analyzing online mapping systems, knowing what land is worth, knowing how to evaluate property, knowing how to plan for your purchase, identifying how to read anything environmental, the physical property itself, reading local markets, knowing how much you can pay, what that land is going to sell for, working with agents, negotiating with sellers, all the way through running thorough due diligence and closing the deal and buying the right property at the right price.
So I'm curious, because I know what you're talking about in terms of there were things you just had to learn for yourself.
Yeah.
And no course is going to teach you. I had plenty of things. That's actually a big part of why I started REtipster.
Yeah.
Because I knew there were a lot of things that like you just learn from the school of hard knocks and there's no course that teaches you that stuff. But are there like 1 or 2 or 3 things that come to mind for you where it's like, oh man, this was the thing I needed to know about, and nobody explained this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are the big hot
There's
button
so
issues
many.
where people get the most stuck and the most hurt if they don't know about it?
Like price per acre being irrelevant for residential land. Like this whole thing of price per acre. It's like, well, land's going for about $10,000 an acre around here. How many times have you heard that from sellers?
Yeah.
Like if I had $10 for every time a seller told me about price per acre, I would never have to work again for the rest of my life. I could just retire on that. I just put it in like a low yield savings account, and I would just live off the income from that principle. Guys, the majority of land in America, 97% of America is undeveloped. Okay. Rural undeveloped land. And in that mix, in that percentage of the land in America, the majority of that property, it's not going to be good for a major subdivision. The economics aren't there. The utilities aren't there. The housing demand is not there. So in that mix of property, I mean, you have like a lot of timberland, forests, you have a lot of agricultural land, farmland, you have a lot of like residential land. But all of that fundamentally, in terms of the highest and best use from a zoning standpoint, it's all residential land. Farmland, agricultural land, the actual value of a piece of farmland is going to be, when you measure it as farm property, it's a lower dollar value. If you can put one house on that farmland, it just transforms the market value of an individual property. So when you know how to look at property, what you realize is that the actual marketplace, the value it's going to put on a piece of land in terms of the actual, the most you can get when you sell a property, it's going to be looking through the lens of using that property for a single home. And so the acreage on a property, the size of a property has very little to do with the value of a property. Almost nothing. Because, and everyone acts like it does. Everyone's like, oh, it's price per acre.
Does it depend on the zoning and the property and the
Quality
market and where it is?
Zoning, yeah. Like let's say, the reason you know that acreage is not the driver is you could have a 1 acre home site just like this in a nice subdivision with high value homes, flat, cleared, open, surrounded by mature hardwood trees, nice forests, nice privacy, a private community where whether this is your backyard here, this could be a half acre, the lot could be an acre, it could be 2 acres, but it doesn't change the value because it's the quality of the land. It's the quality and location of the property that drives it versus if you drive a quarter mile in any direction and there's a 14-acre swamp, it's less valuable. And the reason it's less valuable has nothing to do with the acreage. It has to do with the quality of the land and how the market assigns value based on what you can do on a property. For example, the idea is that from a marketplace and economic perspective, if you look in Manhattan, if you look at like a 4,000 square foot building lot in Manhattan versus a 4,000 acre property, tract of farmland, rural land north of Albany in upstate New York. The small building lot in Manhattan is going to be more valuable because you can generate more rent at that location. You can build a structure that gives you an exclusive claim on that location. And that's what land is. People talk about land in terms of size, and that's only one aspect of it. What land is location. The first 3 rules, as you know, of real estate are location, 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 but the market for location is the land market. So it's always going to be about the quality and location of a property and what the value will be of the finished construction at that location.
Have you ever seen like a legit appraisal on vacant land from a licensed appraiser?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your experience, how many you've seen or anything, but like, what were your thoughts when you saw? Like, did it seem right? Was
No.
it totally off?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was my experience too. But like, it's funny because the bank treats it like the gospel truth.
They use price per acre. It's like their core methodology. When I hear a seller talk about price per acre, let me ask you this, Seth. When a seller talks to you about price per acre, are they a cash seller? Is there a deal there or are they a retail seller?
I mean, use a retail one. Okay.
They're a retail seller. They're not your seller. It's like, well, price per acre, if I can get 10 an acre, here's how the conversation goes. They have like a 14.73 acre property. And it's like, if you had to guess, how much you would need for that land. It's like, well, if I could get 12 an acre, and it's like, so 12 times 14. So that's a what? $168,000 750, and they're like, I don't know. They don't even know what they're asking. They just think about per acre. They don't even know what the price is. All they think about is per acre. That is never going to be a cash seller.
Yeah.
There's always and forever going to be not only a retail seller, but one of those retail sellers, Seth, that you see on Zillow, if you go on Zillow, that overprices their listing and it never sells because they're not even a retail seller. Because a retail seller is going to sell at the market price. But I don't think that a lot of those people will because they have this idea of how they're not, I don't need to sell it. It's price per acre, this and that and the other, but they're just not sellers. And that's the reality.
Yeah. I was just talking with Luis a couple episodes ago. He was got this property, I forget how many acres it was, like 400 something acres, I think, in Texas, that they bought and ended up subdividing and making millions on it. But like the reason they made so much was because there was a giant aquifer right underneath it.
Yeah.
And they had water access, which is like key in most of Texas. If that wasn't true, that land would be worth who knows how little. But it's one of those things, to your point, like acreage, I mean, I don't want to say it's nothing, but like without the other components in there, like it doesn't really tell you that much. You know?
It's acreage is significant, but it's not the most significant thing. And it's not even like top 3 or top 5. And just to challenge myself, I would say location, I would say neighborhood home values, I would say zoning, topography, I would say soil. You can quickly think of a half dozen or so or more things that will drive the market price of a property more than acreage.
So let's talk about some real life examples here. Tell me about one of your best deals.
Yeah.
Like what's a great deal? What made it so great? How'd you find it? Tell me the whole story.
So the thing is, on my best deal and all my best deals, I negotiate price with the seller on the phone on the first call. And after I walk away from the phone call, I don't know if I got a good price. I don't know if I overpaid. I don't know if I'm paying too much. For whatever reason, as I was starting out, the common thread with all the best deals I did was a lack of certainty. It was like, is that good? Is that going to be okay? The most we made on a flip was there's a property in Broadway, North Carolina. It's in Harnett County. I sent a mailer on a 46-acre piece of farmland. Talked to the seller. He lived in South Carolina. He was retired. He had moved away from that location. And he was trying to simplify his finances and everything. The property was like really nice, but it was landlocked because it had a highway to the north, but it was a limited access highway. So you couldn't actually get into the interior of the property. But what he told me, he's like, hey, I have another 46 acres to the south and it connects up to the main road on the other side on the south. And I looked at that property. I saw it like from street view. I saw some of the photos. I'll give you some of the media on this property so you can see it.
Yeah, let's show some B-roll.
But for 96 acres, I didn't really know my comps because on the 46, I think I priced it at like 138 or something on a blind offer. I was looking at comps between 50 to 100 acre property that had sold in that nearby area. And like the highest one I saw was like 415 or 420. And when you negotiate with sellers, like you can't be indecisive. You're never going to have the full information on what that land is worth and what you can pay. So you have to have a system for quickly identifying and estimating value. So I saw a price signal into the 400s, and I also saw that this guy was inclined to accept the offer on the 46 acres at 138. So he's got the other 46 acres. The one I priced at 138, I couldn't even buy for that because it was landlocked, and he knew it. He knew he had to sell them both together. So I was looking at it like, well, if he's a player at 138, on the first 46 acres, if we buy the 92 acres, then maybe he would take 240. And I'm just like kind of feeling like 138 times 2, that's like 276 or something. It's like, it feels high, but maybe I get a volume discount. And that's how I explained it to him. It's like, look, we'd be thrilled to buy both, but the one's landlocked, so it needs the other one. And the access on the one to the south, it kind of comes in. It's like bottleneck. So it's probably not going to be a big development property, but it's a great large tract rural home site. It's some of the best farmland in the world on the northern field, the landlocked field. My soil scientist, when he later went out there, he was like, Alex, I don't know how you found this. And he was literally like, the less I know, the better. I don't want to know. But on that call, I was like, hey, I'd be happy to buy both together, but I probably have to be at like 240,000. And I pause. And he was like, okay. So the letter, I told him to annotate, put the second, I kind of annotate and mark up the letter because you don't want to have to send the second letter out or whatever. Some of these old school sellers, you tell them to grab a pen and you tell them how to annotate the purchase agreement to indicate strike through, initial, put the new price in, put the property in, whatever. And it came back about a week later in the mail, and the agent that sold it was this guy at National Land Realty named Paul Goins, who some people who watch this video that have done deals in Eastern North Carolina will know Paul, and he's helped us a lot. But when he walked it, he went out on like an ATV, and like he actually met the seller out there before we bought it. And he knew how to kind of play it cool with the seller and stuff. And what Paul was great at was he understood that sometimes when you market property, expectations are self-fulfilling. Sometimes agents are too scientific about value. And they're like, well, the comps are like low 400s. Maybe we start at like 425. If we have to drop price, we could start at 399. I just don't want to overprice it. But Paul's whole thing is like, we're going to list it at 499. He's like, and they can offer 480, but that's not going to get it. He's like, this property's 499. And I was like, really? And so I got it funded, and you don't know. Dude, you don't know. All you can do is say, here's the evidence we have. Here's the due diligence that we have, etc. And
Well, so
go ahead.
on that whole thing,
Yeah.
you don't know. Totally agree with that. If you don't know, how do you confidently comp properties in the first place when you really don't know what it's going to sell for?
Yeah, well, so there, I had an idea of value. My thought was like 400 to 450. But when I say I don't know, you got to roll the dice. The buyer sets the price. That's all I mean by that. We had an idea of the value of it. Paul supported our price estimate even higher than we thought. And he has credibility. So he had sold tracts of land like that. He had swagger. He had buyers. And so you always want to triangulate with multiple sources. Mm-hmm. And we teach that in our program, where when you have an idea of how to estimate land values, you can really read the tea leaves and make qualitative comparisons between property. But it's so helpful to triangulate with other local experts, local market experts. So we brought it to market and at $499, and then that was a Friday. And then on that Saturday, we had an offer at $500,000.
Nice.
So I think that property sold at 500. It was, in terms of gross profit, it was over 200 grand. And it was like basically a 50-50 split with the partner, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the best. And we had a couple in the high five figures, like, 60, 80, 75,000, mm-hmm. meaning our split. Because a lot of these were funded by partners. So some of these, there's other properties that had pretty big spreads too. What was happening at that time is like, it was an interesting time in the market because it was really, it was a seller's market, but the sellers didn't really know it, and the buyers, I didn't know it, mm-hmm. It was just all happening. And so I think for every one of those, you have maybe one or two that don't go as well. The commonality with the great deals is great property, mm-hmm. this special property.
When you say great or special, what makes it special?
There's certain attributes of certain properties. On that one, it was on Rosser-Pittman Road. So on the Rosser-Pittman Road property, it was a large tract rural home site, like nothing you could find in the area in terms of acreage, in terms of the cleared cropland, in terms of the location, in terms of the privacy, because the access on the southern part of that property was something like 30 feet or 40 feet. But if it were 60, you'd have sufficient width to have a 2-lane driveway, 1 lane coming in, 1 lane going out. But without that width, you don't have the makings of a major subdivision because you have a certain traffic count with the major subdivision, which means that you need certain traffic counts. And that has to do with like the driveway standards. And you didn't have that. So Paul was trying to, at one point, he had door knocked the church to the south because he was like really getting into this project. He had door knocked, I guess, like the pastor at the church because he was trying to get 20 feet of width on that driveway to see if we could trade 20 feet for like a couple acres behind the church. but it was just too slow moving, or it was like it would have been, we had closing coming up and we kind of knew what we had. And when I asked Paul, I was like, well, so if we don't get that driveway, you say it's going to sell for $499. What happens if we don't get that driveway and our buyer's not a developer? It's like a farmer or single family home builder, home buyer. And he's like, still $499, you know? And because it's the same land, it's qualitatively the same property. And the property is what it is. And it wouldn't have been a perfect development tract because you could probably only put like 40 or 50 homes. And sometimes, according to Paul, in that market, a lot of the builders, they wanted to build like 65 homes because they know their metrics and their economies, and they want to build a certain volume to be able to break even and make money. And so there's all those metrics that go into that. But as a single home site, it was just privacy, location, farmland, and they had a bunch of timberland too. So it was 92 acres, and then there was 40 or 50 acres of cleared farmland and like 30 or 40 acres in a timber program. So it was like a state park in your backyard. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, tell me about a deal that didn't go well.
Yeah. So we had a recent one that we made a mistake on. I'm thinking if this is the best example. I think it is. We bought a portfolio of building lots from an attorney in Bladen County, North Carolina. There was no ill will on his part, but basically they were non-conforming lots because they were smaller than the current minimum zoning standards for that zoning ordinance, that zoning district. You probably bought lots like that too, right? The thing with non-conforming lots is that they might be 0.4 acres, but the minimum dimensional standard is 0.6 acres now that the new zoning ordinance was updated. And so that was the case on these properties. It was something like 7 contiguous properties. And in the zoning ordinance, we called the zoning director. What we found out was that for most legal non-conforming property, as long as you meet the current setbacks, you can still build. So the fact that it's non-compliant doesn't really get in the way of home construction because we knew that they're nice little square lots. They have great sandy soil. You could put a septic anywhere. And we knew that we had 7 home sites. But we bought them and thinking that we would sell them piecemeal or as a portfolio to a local builder because there's demand for housing in that area. It's a good location, good property, cheap property. So you can build manufactured. And so you have an ability to build there. I got a call because the agent that was listing it, he actually was with his dad, the guy that ended up buying it. And it was funny because we didn't anticipate it because his dad like is hooked up with a local builder down there. And he called me and he was like, hey, there's this issue with zoning. They say we can only build 3 homes. And I was like, what? No, it's 7 lots. He's like, no, but it's non-conforming. And I said, yeah, I know, but you have the setbacks. And what he told me was, you have the setbacks, but the problem is that when the 2 non-conforming lots are contiguous, there's a clause in the zoning ordinance that says that when you have non-conforming lots next to each other, you have to treat them as one contiguous property until you meet the setbacks. So in other words, we didn't have 7 home sites. We had 3. And so we made, we broke even. We might have made like $300 after everything on that. I've never lost money on a flip because when you buy right, even if you miss stuff or make mistakes, if you buy right and you do thorough due diligence, you at least know that your capital is safe. Yeah. Where you take a haircut on your capital, it's going to be an issue of access or can you build, meaning soil or wetlands or septic. Like if you don't know how to run due diligence, you can miss stuff like that. Yeah. So we had some close calls. That was probably the worst deal at the highest. We bought it at like 36K. We were into it at like 40K. We sold it at like 47K and then like we just broke even there. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on like the moral or ethical dilemma of offering people so much less than what the property is actually worth? Like knowing that, buying it, doing maybe nothing, maybe a little bit of work to make it better, and then selling it for way more. How do you think through that? Like, does it ever bother you?
No.
Or, just walk me through your thought process. How do you sleep well at night?
Well, so the thing is, there's a reason you get those discounts on land. There's a reason you can buy at discounts. The reason is it's an illiquid market. There's not that many buyers for any one property in the market. And for that reason, there's really uncertainty on the actual price of the property. What that land is going to sell for is never fully known. even if it is known, you have to get the property listed on the market. You have to pay a little bit of money to get it marketable. You got to hire the agent. You got to pay the agent commission and roll the dice. And you got to take market risk. You got to have your capital tied up. You got to put the effort in. You got to supervise the agent. Most agents don't know how to sell land, by the way. So there's that. And some listing agents won't sell land, meaning even if they sign the listing agreement, they have self-limiting beliefs about the property or about the value of the property, or they have self-limiting habits, like they don't pick the phone up, or a combination where it just like won't sell, like on any timeline with certain agents, they like won't allow it to sell. So there's issues. It's not a stock where when you buy or sell on E-Trade, it's like priced out to the market. So there's always that illiquidity. So the buyer that makes an offer below market, the seller knows the game, and buyers should say that. Like, you should tell people that you're an investor. You should tell people that you're trying to do some light improvements on the land and then turn it around and find a home buyer or a long-term buyer who's going to want to build a home there. That's what we would always say. It's like, what are you going to do with the land? That's a big thing you get from sellers. What are you going to do with the land? Is something happening? What are you going to do with the land? What I tell them is, look, our job is to acquire the property from you. The first thing we're going to do with the land is buy it from you for $26,000. And you're not going to have to do any work, because this is what we do. And we're going to cover all the closing costs, and we're going to make it happen. So you don't have to worry about all that. Now, down the line, what we're going to do is we're going to get that land permitted. We're going to make sure we complete a research on the property to make sure we have an understanding of what you can do with the property, how you can build the property. We're going to take photos of the property. We're going to market the property with the intention of finding an end buyer that's going to want to buy it, probably to build a home. So I always tell the seller, look, the land that you own is always, in my view, worth more than what I can afford to pay you. Sometimes significantly more, but it's not all that. It's not a cakewalk, and it's not some like poker chip at Atlantic City that you can just walk it up to the window. It just doesn't work like that. And when you explain, here's option A, here's option B, and you just give them, you paint the option for them. And like option B is, I'll pay you $26,000 cash, 3 weeks. That's it. A lot of sellers are going to want to work with you. And when they know that you're making money and they know that you're running a business, they trust you more, because even if it's less than they want to accept to sell that property, it's real. The constraint that you have and the business and the profit incentive that you have makes it real for the seller, and that they trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes sense to me. Yeah. I remember there was, I have my different story. I'm not going to get into it.
I want to hear it.
You do?
Maybe later.
Well,
we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
But what about you? I want to get in. What was your best deal? Was it that
deal?
Yeah, your best deal.
Yeah.
Was it? You told a story, and I want to hear from you. I don't want to step on your answer, but you told a story of a landlocked property you bought once. Mm-hmm. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was my best deal in terms of like ROI.
Right.
And it was just easy. So there was I think it was a 5-acre parcel in Benton County, Washington. And the property owner had submitted their property to me on my website. It's totally organic. I didn't pay for an ad or anything. It just showed up in my inbox one day. And I saw that it was landlocked and in a pretty rural area. And I was just honest with the guy, like, this is landlocked. Like, I can't get to it. So it's not that useful. I'll give you $500 for it. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And it was super simple. He signed the deed. We were done. It's like one of the easiest closings ever. And I just kind of sat on the property for probably like 8 or 9 months, I think it was, because I was just busy. Didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. When I finally got around to listing the thing, I put it on Craigslist, and within 23 hours of me putting out there, the neighboring property owner reached out to me and offered me $25,000 for this property. And it was one of those things where, like, he was like one of the only people in the world who would have paid that, but like he would have paid that and maybe even more, because it was like right there. It's kind of like this land behind me here. I only own about 30 feet into the woods, and beyond that is my neighbor, and they own most of the woods there. And I've actually talked with them before. Like, if you ever want to like sell that or develop it, like, talk to me first. Like, I'll I'll pay whatever you need to make sure it doesn't get developed. Like, I want that land, but I'm like the only person in the world who would care about it.
Right.
It's in my backyard. But otherwise, it's landlocked. So it's just one of those unique situations. But I guess it highlights the importance of talking to the neighbors. And for that particular deal, I think it was like a 4,900% ROI. And it wasn't just that. It was just how easy it was. It was weird. The lack of obstacles, the lack of problems, how fast it was. Like, everybody just did what they were supposed to do. I don't know, but it was awesome. Great.
And probably if you had sold it to any other buyer on the market, what do you think it would have sold for?
Man, I don't know. It's a good question.
If you had to guess.
I mean, if it was just a random person, I mean, maybe
any other person besides a neighbor who had adjoining land.
Yeah. So, I mean, who did not have adjoining land?
Yeah. Like, what would be the market price to anyone who's not an adjacent neighbor?
Man, I gotta think $5,000 would be overpaying for it. But maybe somebody would have done that.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so it's probably a little luck on that the neighbor was in the market. And I would say there's a little luck that I was able to sell Rosser Pittman at $500,000. But sometimes you get bad luck. It's not all good luck. Yeah. Not everything works out. And so sometimes little things work out. And that probably put a lot of wind in your sails in terms of marketing, in terms of the actual business or operating expenses at that time. It's like, man, we could really use that money in the business.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. It was amazing. I wish there was a way to just reverse engineer that and like make that exact deal happen again and again. But I don't know. I think it is, like you said, there's a little bit of luck to it. But, if you're in the market doing deals, like stuff like that will fall into your lap from time to time, but you got to be out there.
There was I don't know if do you watch any of the house wholesalers like Jerry Norton, Brent Daniels?
Yeah.
So Jamil Damji, Pace Morby, I've been watching those guys for a while, and there was this great like podcast debate that they had about like on market versus off market, which is better for house deals and for real estate deals. And I think it was like Jerry and Jamil were on market. And then it was Brent and maybe Pace were off market. But Brent told this incredible story about how someone on his team in Arizona, because he's down there in Phoenix, called him. This was like recent. He's made it. He's one of the big house wholesalers and one of the big markets for real estate investment, home renovation in Phoenix. And one of his associates, his acquisitions associates, was there at some lady's house. And she called Brent on his cell phone and she was like, Brent, you have to come down here. And he's like, what is it? She's like, just trust me. You need to come down to like Mesa or Chandler or Tempe or wherever this was. You got to come to this address right now. He's like, okay. He got into the car. And I don't have the numbers, but it was something like this where he walked in. He's like, so what's going on at this lady's house? And she's like, I want to sell you this house. And he's like, okay, but why am I here? And they handed him the purchase agreement and it was like $10,000.
Wow. And
he could just put that house as a fixer upper on the MLS for like $100,000 or $120,000. And the lady was like in like a good mental state. She was like a clear mental, like she was like volitionally entering into this trade. And she's like, I just want you to have it. And I want you to, I want you guys to, I want you to have this home. Like I connected with your associate. And I wanted you to come down here so I could explain why I'm selling this house to you. And then Brent was like, but we can offer you more than 10,000. I mean, we could probably you could probably sell it for more than that. And she's like, I know, but your associate here, she's such a nice young lady. And I just want you guys to win big. And that was it. And he's like, and then he bought it and they won big.
Wow.
And the whole thing in that story of the debate, and like Jerry was coming in and he was like, well, okay, but what's the point of that story? And the point of that story is that only happens with off-market property. Stuff where it's like you have sellers that you can build a connection with. There's no one standing in between. There's no advisor.
Yeah.
There's no like no financial advisor. There's no insurance salesman. There's no real estate agent. There's no like other. It's like I want to pass this down. I know you guys will do a good job. And I know it's a hard market out there. I know it's competitive. I just think you guys are great and I want you to win.
Did she like know him from his content or something? Or
I don't know.
Huh.
I would have a difficult time finding that video, but it was one of those things that you hear and it's like, that is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Such an interesting, and I've learned a lot from the land guys like you, and all the educators in land. And then I've for years have watched a lot on the house wholesalers, the Jerry Nortons, the Pace Morbys.
There's a lot we can learn from that.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Have you heard what's happened to the house wholesaling industry in general?
Yeah, a little bit.
Apparently from 2021 to now, 90% of house wholesalers are gone.
Yeah.
Like they're out of the business.
Yeah.
Which is a huge number. And I don't know what that means for land exactly, if the numbers are similar or if they went from houses to land. But it's very telling how much the market and everything has changed.
Totally. And a lot of it's the regulations in many states.
Yeah.
This whole thing of like assignment of contract is a lot. It's at the crux of the issue. It's like assigning your interest in a contract where you don't really have an intention of being the end buyer, and yet you position yourself on a purchase agreement and you try to flip the contract. And then meanwhile, a lot of these sellers have distress either in their finances or their property or both. So they have real timelines, and then you're just trying to arbitrage this thing. And I understand, I do. But I think that for the house wholesalers, the way that they not even circumvent, the way that they address the regulation is they wholesale. They do what land flippers do, which is that you take title, you take ownership to the land, and then you are the buyer.
Yeah.
And so that really gets around a lot of the stuff. And there's people like Brent Daniels, who I just brought up, where when this was discussed on a podcast of theirs, he mentioned, he's like, look, I have an education program and I teach people how to get into the business, and some of the transactional lenders and the hard money and then the assignment stuff, like we teach that. But he's like, in our business, we've been taking down these properties for years. Like everything that he does, he buys it, he puts it on the MLS, wholesales it. So I think that's how you get around that.
Have you ever done any assignments or double closings?
Oh yeah.
Like that?
Yeah. I've done a house flip. I renovated a mobile home.
Mm-hmm.
I did a mobile home deal. Did some assignments, double closes. Yeah. There's a lot of stories there, There's just a lot of stuff. There was one, I was buying cash. Survey came back, the property was landlocked. But prior to finding that out, the guy on the other side was the neighbor who always wanted to buy it from that seller. Mm-hmm. And by the time she signed the agreement, she had made a commitment with us. And then she's like, oh no, this guy Maurice always wanted to buy the land. I feel guilty now. Maybe you can sell to him. I gave him your number so he'll call you. It's like, oh, I was like, no, I have to deal with Maurice. Maurice called me and he was like, hey, if you want to double close it, you can make a little money. I've always wanted that land. I just don't want people to put mobile homes back there. I just want the privacy, whatever. I was like, look, we're going to bring it to market. But before it goes live, I'll give you 48 hours and we can work it out if there's a deal there. I'm thinking I don't want to deal with this guy. I'd rather let the market price it out because I knew it was really good property. But the property comes back and there's an issue where the publicly maintained road ends 30 feet before the gravel continues. And there's a 30-foot buffer where it's landlocked. There's an old soil road, old farm road that's not actually part of any easement. There's no right of way. Even though the neighbors that use that same private road, they don't have the easement either. There's homes back there. But the problem is the goalposts have moved. And if you're buying land for cash, you're trying to put it on the market, that buyer is going to try to get title insurance and they'll squeeze you really hard if you have an access issue. Mm-hmm. And a neighbor can put a gate up and all this type of stuff. So it wasn't worth what we were paying. And then I realized that, and then I was like, oh shoot, I think the only way we can make anything on this deal is if Maurice is a buyer. So we called Maurice back and I was like, yeah. And I was honest. I was like, look, there's this access issue. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, they know about that. The seller and her husband were kicking themselves when they sold that lot that created the access. He's like, yeah, there's an access, and there's a boundary issue actually along my property too, but I don't care about any of that. So they knew. And I was like, this is the buyer. It's just like the buyer that bought that landlocked property. He bought it at a price that no other market buyer would pay because he had a unique interest in it. And for that reason, I did an assignment on that one. because there's an attorney in North Carolina in Raleigh that would do assignments. Some attorneys, most are squeamish about it, but he was cool about that. And I hear a lot of stuff. I know there's a lot of educators that really promote the double closes as a strategy and the assignments as a strategy, the novations as a strategy. And look, success speaks volumes. People make money. I just always, when I got a property in front of me at a good price, I would just want to buy it and control it and own it. Because when you're in the deal on a 3-month or 6-month thing, if it's actually good property and you're experienced as a land buyer, the capital partners that are going to want to work with you, as long as their capital's safe, they'll take a little bit of risk as far as return on investment. Versus if you have these deals tied up 3 months, 6 months, like extension clauses, and you're just kind of waving your hand and then you're marketing it on the other side on Zillow, the longer those deals go, the more fragile they are. And if it's good property, I would just want to own it. And I know there's risk, but the problem is time. It's just disproportionately time intensive to manage those deals. And that's the issue that people don't really talk about. That's why I never found them to be that profitable of a strategy, because just take it down, put it on the MLS, and just move on to the next one has always been my thing with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely cleaner to just take title and all that.
Yeah. But when we do double closes and we wholesale property, it's always, I'm thinking, not always. I used to do it with a builder, but other than that, it's mostly like when the deal falls apart and there's like a neighbor or there's like a son-in-law or something. Like there's always something like that.
Yeah. Well, do you want to transition to YouTube?
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's jam.
So what were your early days on YouTube like? Like, did you have, I don't know, was it difficult to find your voice and figure out, like, who am I going to be on this YouTube channel? What's my persona, my personality? Did you deal with imposter syndrome at all? Anything like that?
Well, it's what we talked about before the camera started rolling, which is being natural in front of the camera is the hardest thing. And that's why I wanted to do this out here, among other reasons, which is that I just thought that if we could be outside, when I started shooting outside versus in my office, everything's more natural. Mm-hmm. So when you're surrounded by forests and woods and you're in someone's backyard, it's very easy to be yourself. The context of being by your computer in your office, it's like very stiff. It's just very stilted, stuffy. It's just not a natural atmosphere to be yourself, at least when you're starting. So yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how YouTube worked in many ways. And so I was just sort of like, what's a video that's relevant? I didn't know how to target topics or titles and thumbnails. So I just put these videos up. They'd get like 30, 40, 50, 80 views. And some of those initial videos that over a year ago got like 100 views. My first soil and septic video got like 120 views in the first week or two. I think it's at like 1,000 now. It's at like 1,100, 1,200. So really, YouTube's powerful. And even if it's kind of an awkward video, it's not packaged well. If it's a good video, it will ultimately grow. But yeah, man, I mean, some of those early videos were a little bit cringe for sure. But most of them I keep on the channel because I still think that it's good and like they add value. And I don't need to be like a rock star on every video. It's just literally like, I don't want to have to redo that video. And it's good enough that I think it's valuable to the audience. So that said, I think I have this chip on my shoulder about like being in sales for many years. So a lot of it was like, how do you get the attention of the buyer? How do you get behind the front office to talk to the doctor to sell this product or whatever it is? And so I always had this thing of like being aggressive about getting past the gatekeeper. And for YouTube, the gatekeeper is the algorithm and the audience to a degree. And so what happens is I just was posting these videos. I wasn't getting a lot of traffic. And I think my 7th video, I was like, F it. I'm sick and tired of this. And I had seen, I don't know if it was Wayne Turner. I don't know if it was the Reventure guy that does selfie stick walking videos, the sort of like selfie, like walking through the neighborhood with the moving background. Mm-hmm. Sometimes YouTube gives you like inspiration of other channels to emulate. And all the videos they were suggesting were that style. So I went to I was like, F it. Like, I'm going to get a video. I'm going to get some traffic. So I took my iPhone on this like weird selfie stick. And then I went out to FDR Park in Philly and I did this like shaky camera video with no microphone other than the iPhone mic. And it was like so shaky. There were like private emails that I got. Like, I don't even know how they got my email, but there were people that were like, Alex, like, love the content, but dude, the video production is like so shaky. I like got seasick watching it. I was like, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
And the audio was so rough, and there was like construction in like a adjacent area of the park. So you could hear the dump trucks and the big, like the excavators and the equipment and stuff. And you could hear beep, beep. And like when the equipment would start going, I would like raise my voice and I would just start talking like this. So like to cover it up. And then it was like this weird thumbnail. It's still there. It's this weird thumbnail of like me with like a t-shirt going like that. It was like, I bought 89 tracts of land in North Carolina, and here's what I learned. I remember that several days after that first weekend, because at one point it was like getting 250 views an hour. And I was like, yo,
wow.
like what? And it got like, it's at like 4,500 views now, but it got up to like 3,000 views or 3,200 views. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. I remember I was like randomly visiting my mom and we were golfing, and I showed her a YouTube studio and I was like, look at this, mom. You know, it's like literally like, wow, you know, it's so great. And that was the first video where I started getting any traffic. And then the next few after that, we got traffic. And I started to see it's about the storytelling, but it's really about the packaging of the idea.
It was really interesting about the time I discovered you. It was a very humbling moment, because it was around the time I had gotten to 100,000 subscribers. And I always had known that subscribers don't really matter on YouTube. Like, I never see videos from people I'm subscribed to. It's purely a vanity metric.
Totally.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's great for my ego, but like, it doesn't actually translate to more views at all. And I find Alex's channel, and I can't remember how many subscribers you had, but as of the time of this recording, you've got a video with 830,000 views, another one with 655,000 views from a month ago. So like, you're doing something right. Like, a lot of people are seeing this, and I presume most of them are not subscribed to you. And I don't know if you've got like a formula that you've cracked the code, you know how YouTube works, or maybe YouTube is just for some reason favoring those videos. But like, what do you think is making these work? Why are so many people seeing these things and resonating with them?
Well, thanks for that, by the way. I admire what you've done. And yeah, this year and I think you're not at 100K subs anymore. You're at like 123 or something. You picked up that was like 2 months ago. You picked up 23,000 subscribers. Literally.
Just got to get these people to watch my videos.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, they're watching. I see your numbers. I see the traffic you have. They are watching. But we can talk. A lot of people talk about title and thumbnail. Like, which is more important, title or thumbnail? The answer is title. And we'll talk about that. But see, that's a red herring, because the reason why our channel is growing, and I think the reason that a lot of YouTube channels grow, it's not the tactical minutia of the video itself. What it is that behind the video and behind the channel, there's a disruptive idea. The disruptive idea and the sort of the worldview behind it is what propels the content itself. And I'll give you an example of that. I never had instruction of how to buy land, how to invest in land from a tactical standpoint. Now, after all these years, after all these deals, I put together this system that mainly was designed for our internal training. We use the same systems we teach. But the disruptive idea behind our content is this: you can buy land like a pro with no prior experience. You don't need experience. You don't need any experience in real estate. You don't need to be an investor. You don't need to have bought or sold land. And if that is true and you have no experience at all, it's actually better in some ways, because so many people are indoctrinated to all the bad advice in the land business, in the land industry, that it's actually like advantageous not to have experience. But regardless of any of that, you can buy land at a level that is equivalent, on equal footing with some of the top land buyers in the country today, if you just learn some basic fundamentals. Because in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And when I say the land of the blind, I'm not talking about the Seth Williams of the world, or the Alex Reeses of the world, or the people that join these masterminds and these groups. I'm talking about a marketplace where realtors don't know what land is worth. Landowners don't know what land is worth. They go off a price per acre and like antiquated ideas that don't actually hold up under scrutiny. There's just so much bad advice. If you can just clear out all the fog and the bad advice, your ability to see opportunity clearly is automatic. It's automatic. It's literally clear the bad advice, and then what's left is a simple process of simple fundamental steps to do it. So the disruptive idea is like that's the worldview. Anyone that's watching this can buy land at a professional level with no prior experience, period, end. No qualifier. And that's true. And it's true, and we've seen it's true. We've seen it's true with a lot of the students that take the course. We can get into some of the reviews and accolades. It doesn't matter. The fact that it's true, if it weren't true, I would never be able to say it like this to the internet and to publish this for everybody to see. So that being the case, that creates for me a little energy behind certain topics. Because when you have a worldview, underneath that worldview, there's certain philosophy that naturally flows out of that. We talked about how price per acre is wrong. We talked about that, but another thing is that when you're outside of the world of land investing, and when you're a general land buyer who just wants to buy a property to build a home, buy a property for a homestead, DIY land buyers, family land buyers, recreational buyers, etc. Those are people who want to buy property, and they just need a simple system to follow. But what they do is they go on Zillow. See, this is where I almost lost my train of thought, but see, I kind of pulled it back in there. Now I know what I was going to say, Seth. When you're flipping property, you're dealing with sellers. Your sellers aren't listing their property on the market, okay? But when you're like anyone else, you go on Zillow. You go on Zillow, and what you see on Zillow will shock you. Because what you'll see on Zillow is that the majority of land for sale is overpriced. And not like, well, it's worth 80, they're asking 99, maybe they're trying, it's like, no, it's worth 110, they're asking 875. And it's the fact that it's worth 110 is like it's like not ambiguous, it's not subtle. But the next week's video at the time of this recording is a video where I have my team do some research, and this was an example of a guy who bought a property that he's selling it at like 985 grand. He bought it last February for like 110 on the market. Oh, it was listed. He did. Dude, they don't do anything to the property. It's like, oh, did he build like a condominium? No.
Is this a land flipper?
No, he's just like some guy. It's like some guy in like Georgia or something. It's everywhere. It's all the time. And here's the other thing. You go on Zillow. Most all of the land is overpriced on the market, grossly. Why is that? The answer is because they don't want to sell it. We were talking about this. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, okay, Alex, if they don't want to sell that land, then why are they selling that land? And the answer is ego. They don't want to sell. They want to look at a big number, and they want to talk to all their friends about it. Their friends come over to dinner, and they're like, hey, I saw the farms for sale. It's like, Seth, I saw the farms for sale. It's like, oh, yeah. It's like, what do you got it listed for? It's like 1.95. It's like, oh, you think it'll sell? It's like, well, that's what it's worth. That's it.
Yeah.
Because the reason you know they don't want to sell is this. If you wanted to sell a property, and you decided, I wanted to sell this house, I wanted to sell this vacant lot, what's the first question you would ask? The first question you would ask is like, well, who's the buyer and like, what would they realistically pay? Because market buyers are going to sell at a market price. If you have a Honda Civic, used Honda Civic that you want to sell, the whole thing is like you're selling. So if you have a used Honda Civic that's with the certain mileage, model year, it's worth 20 grand. Then if you're a seller of that Honda Civic, you would gladly take 20 grand to sell it. Cash?
You'd think so.
You would take 16.5 on a cash deal. You would probably take 20K on payments, 5K down, 15K on a note. But the idea that people are selling property at three times its actual value with listings that have aged 12 months, 18 months, 24 months on market, the idea that those are people that actually want to sell property is just fantasy. They don't. They're going through this rigmarole. They're putting the agent through this process. They like seeing the agent chase the buyer around. Okay. They like them answer the phone. They chase the buyer around, and then they look down their nose at these real buyers. Like a lot of the viewers of this video who make real offers, and they're like, oh, no way. There was scorn.
How many people out there do you think are doing this? Like what percentage? Really? So,
Yeah.
I mean, is there a way to filter these people out? Does Land Portal have like a
Maybe
egomaniac buyer or sellers?
I want to talk about Land Portal actually, but the thing is, when I say the majority, it's different gradations of extreme. Not all buyers are at that mindset. Most land on the market is overpriced, to be clear. And most of that overpriced land is sellers that don't really want to sell it. That's also very clear. The way that you filter that out is make offers. Don't make formal fancy purchase offers on like formal state purchase agreements. Dude, just like text the agent or text the seller and be like, hey, or call them, better yet. It's like, hey, it probably wouldn't make sense for you guys. I'm a cash buyer. I'm easy. I'm closing in 30 days. I can give you $85,000, give you $1,000 earnest money, close in 30 days. Let me know if that would even make sense. And you're on to the next one. Because this is a Jerry Norton thing that I picked up many years ago, which is, it's the same for houses, less extreme, which is the reason you make a volume of offers is not to get a signed purchase agreement on every offer. Because if you get a signed purchase agreement, you make 10 offers over text and you get 4 purchase agreements, you're only going to buy 1 property typically. If you're a retail buyer, if you're an investor, you can buy as many as you would reasonably want, but you might not want to buy 10. So the reason you make a volume of offers is not to get the contract. The reason you make a volume of offers is to find out who the real sellers are. Because if the seller has a piece of land that's overpriced, it's one of 2 things. Either the seller is delusional and or they don't actually want to sell it. Really, there's no motivation. They're not a seller. Or they're negotiating. So if you offer below asking price and they don't accept your real offer based on their fake asking price, who cares? Or on the other hand, you may be giving them what they want because they're negotiating. And by you making an offer, you're negotiating back. So objectively, there's no reason to worry. You can't look at asking price. I cannot emphasize this. You have to, it's like, I had a deal funder, a guy who I respect, who's a capital guy down in Texas, who's done a lot of land deals, been very supportive. And even he's done millions of dollars of land. But I was like, hey, we should start offering on some of these listings on owner finance, do minor subdivides, partially release the seller node and do it that way. And I showed him a financial model and I showed him, like, for example, this property, we'd buy it at this. And he's like, well, they're asking $650,000, but you're saying we'd buy it at $425 on owner finance. And he's like, how would that make sense? I was like, because their number isn't real. Because it's not worth $650,000.
Yeah. This game of poker, I can't stand it because I dealt with this for a long time when trying to buy existing storage facilities. Very similar thing where, I mean, the bottom line was like the seller's asking price doesn't matter at all.
Doesn't matter.
Like you have to look at what pencils out, what's going to make money, what's going to cash flow. And if it doesn't, it's not a deal, period. No. They can want whatever they want. But even as I'm sitting here telling you this, like it is still a psychological phenomenon for me. When somebody throws a number out there, there's a part of me that thinks, okay, I need to try to hit that. When it's like, no, you don't. Like, you got to put your number out there and be happy to walk away. And I got to keep coaching myself on that. It's weird. It's frustrating.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You have to, and so I'll give you an example of this. We had a property come back on a blind offer that we had a chance to buy it at $20,000. And at a certain point, I was like, I had delegated a lot of the operations at that time. This was very recent, within the last year. And we're going up and back. We realized that the person I was talking to was not the owner. It was the agent. And I was like, oh, are they planning on listing this? Or like, were they going to list it? And then I look on Zillow and it was listed. It was listed at $85,000 and we had under contract at 20 and we closed the deal at 20. Now, the reason we bought it at 20 is because of seller motivation, some of these dynamics. So we paid some of the closing costs. We made it easy, but it wasn't worth 85. It was worth 45. So if you have a used Honda Civic that's on Facebook Marketplace, Blue Book value $18,000, you can ask for $59,000 and you can have it on the market for 24 months on Facebook. But like, is a buyer going to think it's worth $60,000 just because that aged listing says it is? The buyers have to live in the real world.
Yeah. Well, tell me on the comping process. So that example right there, the seller had a listed for 85. It was really worth 45. Mm-hmm. How long does it take you to comp a property, like reliably? Because sometimes the very material facts that definitely affect value are things you can't see on a computer screen.
Correct.
It's like stuff, you need boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So like, you're doing what you can from the computer and you kind of verify the facts after they accept it? Is that the process you go through?
Yeah. So to answer your question, it takes me about a minute, sometimes 2 minutes. We go through a process we use Zillow. And to your point, you're never going to have perfect information about a property. So the idea is to have a provisional understanding of value based on public comps, public sales history, and that you can make an offer based on an 80% confidence. You can't ever be 100% confident, because if you wait to be 100% confident, you miss the opportunity. Someone else buys it, they take another offer, the listing expires, they decide not to sell, et cetera. And you need to be able to make offers more quickly. So we have a process of evaluating land where we ask 5 basic questions about a property, and we use sort of a sequence of filters on Zillow to go through. And the 5 questions about a property are what's close, what's recent, what's average, what's similar, and what's selling. And I'm not going to go through all the steps of what all that entails, but it's a system we created. We call it CRASS, because CRASS. It's close, recent, average, similar, selling. The idea is that you're not going to plug a bunch of numbers in and get a definite number on the other side. There's no like computer algorithm for evaluating the qualitative features of a property. And the idea on the CRASS system is that you're asking questions. And by asking questions, you force yourself to expose yourself to the local market sales data that will naturally steer you in the right direction as far as value. So we have a video, I think it was a couple weeks ago. It's like how to find the value of any land in 60 seconds, something like that, where I show I break it down in a long form example, and then I show a live run through where I do it. And this is what happens when you're on the phone with the seller. A lead comes in, a blind offer lead comes in, and you want to be able to get to a price on that call. You really do, I think. There's trade-offs, but there's a lot of this stuff of, no, you want to like go back and like comp the land. And then, dude, if you're like pretty good and you know what to do to evaluate land values, you can evaluate land values over the phone with the seller on that first phone call. And you can do it with a high degree of accuracy. But the interesting stuff, I'm sure you've seen this, you get a contract and you know that you have a good price on it. But sometimes as you get closer to closing, as you learn more about the property, your understanding of its value evolves.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so interesting how that works.
I just made an offer on a self-storage facility 2 days ago for $600,000. There was a part of my decision-making that was flawed because they gave me kind of a range that they were looking for, which I shouldn't have even paid attention to. But anyway, made this offer. I thought it was low compared to their number they threw out, and they immediately accepted it. And I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
What did I do? I've dug into it more, and I've kind of corroborated. I don't think it was too high, but I'm still looking for stuff. Like I'm almost expecting I'll have to like renegotiate and bring it lower. But you ever have that where like they accept your first offer and you're just like, oh my gosh, what did I screw up?
Constantly.
Why did I say yes?
And sometimes when you renegotiate, there's no it's like, I messed up.
Yeah.
There's plenty of deals where I talk to the seller and it's like, what I agreed to pay you, like, I think it's actually worth that. But the problem is I messed up my numbers because I got to take all this risk. I got to pay all these closing costs on both ends. I got to hold the bag on this deal for 6 or 8 months. So even if it is worth that, I mean, that's like a market price. And for you to get that price, there's like a process we would do. It costs money. It takes time. You got to pay commissions. So like, you're not going to like me when I tell you this, but like I messed up on numbers. I'd love to buy it in 2 weeks, but I'd have to come down to like $15,000 where I'm literally just like, yeah, it's me. It's not them. And it's not even something on the property. It's something that I missed. So it's just being honest with sellers is the key thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting.
I want to ask you actually about your self-storage. So where's that business at for you? Because your initial development, can you talk about that project?
Yeah.
How long it took, how big the project is in terms of the number of doors, and kind of where you are in terms of the life cycle of stabilizing that asset, and kind of where you see that going for you in terms of future projects.
Yeah. So if anybody has not seen a little video series I did on this, it'll explain a lot. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, this was a piece of land I bought in 2021. And over the course of 2 years, we designed and developed a 27,600 square foot self-storage facility, the 170 drive-up, roll-up door units, and then 68 parking spaces for boats and RVs. From the date that I decided to do this to the date that we actually finished construction, the market slowed down substantially for self-storage.
which basically means people are not moving as much because interest rates went up.
How long was that project?
It was about 2 years from when I decided to do it to when I finished it. And that's one of the big risks any developer takes on is like the market can change when you're in the middle of this project. So like it was right when you started, but it's not correct anymore when you finish. But anyway, so things weren't backwards. They were just slower than we planned on them being.
In terms of the lease up?
Yeah, exactly. And when I say slower, it's really more just normal. When I did this, the market was red hot. And when I finished, it had just slowed down to normal levels. So it took us about, the normal time frame of 2 to 3 years to lease up. So we opened in August of 2023. We're now over 2 years past that. I think we're at like 78% occupancy now.
Nice.
So we're making money on it.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's, but I'll tell you, like from the date that I bought the land to the date that it stopped losing money was 3 years.
Isn't that unbelievable?
And that's a long time to have like $450,000 of your cash just like tied up. You're crossing your fingers saying, man, I hope this works out. So that I didn't love, but I will say it was quite the adventure and I learned a lot. And honestly, like I want to keep doing it.
Totally.
It's a lot of fun and the depreciation write-offs are awesome. And the permanent passive sources of income it's exactly what I wanted. So, and I think that's a big dilemma a lot of land investors have is because it's really stinking hard to find anything else that makes the same margins that land does. And to take a bunch of your profits and divert it into something like self-storage, you've got this mental battle of like, man, I'm parking money that could be making a lot more. And that's kind of true. But at the same time, if you want to get off the hamster wheel at any point, you eventually have to start doing that. It's just a matter of if and when. And if you never do it, I mean, I hope you love flipping land so much that you want to be doing it forever.
That's it. It's a one-time payout. I mean, we talked about this. You're on that hamster wheel. And the thing about investment real estate and commercial real estate, even rental property investing, you probably agree with self-storage, that we've gone through a period in the market where, it was like exuberant expectations and like unrealistic interest rates and the market was hot, the market was rising and all this type of stuff. But when you actually look at the long-term trends of real estate and you talk to the people that have really done it, and in terms of commercial investment real estate, that's something that I want to be able to do over the next couple of years. And land definitely gives you a springboard, a core skill set to be able to get in to real estate in other ways. It's kind of like a gateway drug in a way, which I think it's really good for that in terms of an education. The whole thing with investment real estate, people talk about cash flow. It's like, we bought it, this cash flow, there's this, there's that. There's definitely, you want to look at the P&L, you want to understand the income statement, the profitability. But rental properties aren't profitable really right now in the market. Real estate in the market is basically overpriced relative to the underlying rents. And that's old news. Like that's been true for a couple years. And it's a long-term real estate cycle issue. But when you get outside of the actual minutia of the cycle itself, the old heads, the people that really know investment real estate will tell you it's like, you just got to hold on for 10 years. And that's it. Mm-hmm. It's not about glitz and glamour day one. It's about literally hold it. Just hold on. And over time, the right asset in the right location with the right management will perform. Over time, what happens on some of these commercial investments, the wealth creation that can happen is really significant. It's not get rich quick. It's get rich for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a similar thing. I mean, if you're into the stock market, like
totally.
There are windows.
Stocks are way easier, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, there's windows of time where like it tanks, but it's like just zoom out a little bit.
That's right.
Can you ever find a 40 or even 30-year window where it didn't go up substantially eventually? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just a similar mental battle, I think.
Let me ask you something. I want to ask you about your team, the REtipster organization, kind of what that organization looks like, who the players are. I know Neil is a person, he's an investor. He's also creates some of the content, but you probably have other people behind the scenes too. I'd love to hear more about your organization and kind of where your people are and kind of where you guys are spending your time.
Yeah, definitely. So I used to have the philosophy of like hiring in-house, having them all be like W-2 full-time people. And that was fine, but kind of shifted my approach. Now I've only got one person who is like a formal employee and they're part-time. And that's my editor, Rex, who handles all the written content pretty much everywhere. But everybody else is either like a partner, or like, for example, Neil, like I don't pay him for what he does. He's out there trying to build a name for himself and a brand and recognition. And he's got great things to say. He can talk about stuff because he has knowledge that I don't have. So he can kind of deliver in ways that I can't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really like a monetary partnership per se, but in terms of like team members, like I've got a couple different video and podcast editors, depending on the type of video or podcast. One's in Pakistan, one's in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
Rex is in the Philippines. I've got a graphic designer here in town that just does one-off projects. So they're kind of people where like I don't even have enough work to keep them busy full time,
Right.
but I can tap them on the shoulder when I need them, and they're ready to go.
And you probably know enough about the real estate deals you do where like, you do big projects now where you can underwrite an asset or underwrite a purchase offer on a piece of either a piece of property you're going to develop or self-storage facility. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the media stuff too, actually. And I want to say the thing is on your end, true or false, like without the team you've built, would REtipster be where it is today in terms of traffic, brand, content?
No, I mean, if I didn't have any of them, something would have to give. Like I'd have to shut down the podcast or the YouTube channel, something, because there's no way I could do all that.
It's not possible. And you were giving me accolades earlier on the success of our channel and a lot of really our more recent video topics. And I want to talk about quality versus quantity of traffic. I think that's a good topic for the audience, like chasing views versus the right views. But my videos would not be possible without our team, without the team that I work with. We have sort of a strategy called the writer's room. A lot of our team, we collaborate on video ideas. We have an editor named Johnner. My full-time team's all in the Philippines. I'm planning on going out in a couple weeks. I usually go out once a year. We hang out. We're all friends. And my video editor named Johnner, he's like a young guy. He's like 24, really talented, really sharp. And then Clary, who has been with the company for about 3 years. Most of my employees have been with the company for at least 3 years, which is crazy. Nice. Clary is incredibly sharp. She's our main analyst for evaluating property. She's a person where if you see any of our media assets in terms of our due diligence spreadsheets, some of the PDFs, some of the collateral that goes into the course, all that's her. She's better than me at so many things. She's extremely smart. And she helps with some of the production elements of the video. She knows my storytelling and she understands the sequencing and timing of the storytelling and laying the graphics out. Aiko on my team is sort of like a do anything analyst researcher. She's the one that would call the county offices and pull all the property details. She does a lot of research on the property, on the properties that we buy. She does a lot of research on the videos that we write. And she does a lot of our email campaigns. I just approve a lot of the stuff now, which is crazy if you can believe it. And then Maralog on my team, she's, if anybody's called the office, Maralog's probably the person that you would talk to. And she's just an incredibly gifted person in terms of anything with people. Yeah. She's an incredible people person and she's in the Philippines too. But I always joke, it's like, you grew up in New Jersey, didn't you? And I'm still, Maralog, I think you might have grown up in New Jersey. But the point is, great executive presence on the phone. She can handle sellers and she negotiates directly with the seller. Like I don't even get involved until the purchase agreement gets signed on some of these land deals. Yeah. She does some of the research work on the video topics. She was the one who came up with the video idea. She's like, hey, we should do a video called How to Spot Bad Land in 60 Seconds. And maybe like you can show how to spot bad land and then do like a live walkthrough at the end. And that was the video that popped a month or two ago. And like, that's one of the ones that got the channel where it is today. And that was 100% her idea. And what's interesting about good titles and good ideas, and when I was going through your library, all your old stuff, it's like how to find the topography of any land in the world. And it was like 12 years. It's like a title. It wouldn't work today because of all the database systems that we have. Mm-hmm. Like Stride, the land portal, land ID, data tree, and all this type of stuff. But it just jumps out. Like it's just good. And so when Maralog did that title, I was like, that's it. And it just pops out. And so we really have almost like a small mastermind on our team internally to come up with these topics. And so I like pick the topic and then I create the outline. I delegate research. So some of the property examples come back and then I find it. I sort of try to practice the script. So you asked about, our success, and I said behind every growing channel is a disruptive idea. Same with REtipster, by the way. And what is the disruptive idea that's really behind it? We talked about that. But when we talk tactically, what I am proud of about our growth and our channel is you see a lot when you get into YouTube, it's this ego thing where you work so hard on these videos and at the beginning, they don't get views. And so and it's sort of manipulative in a way where it's this transactional thing that you can't help but feel like, oh, I spent so much time on this video and this video is good, but I'm not getting views. It's like I, me. It's this grasping transactional energy at the beginning because you feel like you're owed something and you're not. But business is about doing the boring work repeatedly over a long period of time with no reinforcement and getting out of this transactional thing in general, because just because you win doesn't mean that you're a winner. Just because you lose doesn't mean you're a loser. So what are the things that you enjoy, that you love doing so much that you would almost work for free if you could do it every day? And you start there and you reverse engineer your interests. And what I enjoy about our channel is that we didn't take any shortcuts. Like there's a lot of interest in, okay, now that I know how to make the views go, I know it. I'm like, the Fonz. Sometimes with thumbnails and titles, like if I don't get the right sound on the other side of a video, I'll hit the jukebox until I start getting the CTR metrics and stuff. And we talked about that. But then you take it a step further and sometimes you can get caught up in the fads. You can get caught up in the Crash Bro content. You can get caught up in like the big red letters and like the negative, the world is falling content, or the squatters in my home content,
Yeah.
And by the way, it's good content. Like I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying that it's law of attraction. You get more of what you put out. You get more of what you are. The way that you are being is going to attract the audience. And what I appreciate about our successful videos is that they're pure education. It's not like some squatter, like burning building, dilapidated shack. It's like, the A stands for access, like the S, it's like literally education all the way through. Pure education all the way through. Pace Morby was on Sean Cannell's podcast. We talked about this. Mm-hmm. He talks about the quality of views versus quantity. And I want to get your input on this about like some of your videos, Seth, and kind of what you've seen in your catalog. Yeah. Let's get this fire moving too. Let's get that big boy on you. Thank you. We needed that. The fire, this atmosphere is incredible. I wish you guys could see all the trees back here. But you chase the views. And then you get the views, but then it doesn't drive business because are those your people? It's like you put out like, this is a scam. The world is falling. Then you get that squad. You get the scam squad. Yeah. And dude, that's great. And that's fun. But is that really aligned with what you're doing? So one of the more recent videos we did, I was telling you about how we've had videos that really pop. And when the videos pop, sometimes the broader audience, the unfocused viewership is a symptom of the success of the video. So it's actually the right topic and it performs so well that half the viewership is like people that aren't really interested in land. And it's not because you picked the wrong topic, it's because you did it great and it was so good that half the viewers are never going to watch your channel again. But then if you can pick the right audience, guys, in the creator economy, in the online economy, in the offline economy, in the brick and mortar service industry, if you have a small business, if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, if you're a life coach, if you're a yoga studio, dude, like 20 clients on a new business will change your life. And the ability you have to get 20 clients from one video is extremely significant. But the exercise is this. Those 20 clients for you, for your product or service, they're in the market right now. They're there. They have their checkbooks open, their wallets open, and they're just looking for you. So if you have a video that you're chasing views, chasing metrics, chasing attention, and it's like some scattershot thing that doesn't really line up with like your actual avatar, then you'll get exactly what you wish for. You'll get the 10,000 views. You'll get the 20,000 views, but there's no business. So the thing is, you have clients in the market today. And what if you could do a video where instead of getting 10,000 random views or unfocused views, what if you got a video that just got those 20 views? How much business is that going to drive for you? And so we had a video last week where we're kind of starting to see this in our library, where when certain videos ebb and flow on YouTube over time, certain videos flatline and then they'll start picking up. And there's certain videos in our catalog where when it starts to move, that's when the clients come in. That's when the inquiries come in. That's when the Stripe notifications come in. That's when the cash register rings. It's certain videos.
Mm-hmm.
And when we published this one last week, which I was struggling with the title and thumbnail on it, it's a separate story, but I knew it was good. And you watched it. You said you liked it too. But when I published it, I was like, it's good. What I don't know is like how much traffic it's going to get. And I was talking on our group call in the morning with my team, and I was like talking to Clary, and I said, look, it's almost like the less views that this video gets, the better, because the fewer views it gets, the more, and the lower the CTR is, the more that the audience self-selects into the video, the higher the watch time is going to be, the higher the viewership quality is going to be, the higher the engagement is going to be, the more of the course we're going to sell. And it was exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
It was the slowest launch that we've had in like the last 6 months. And it was the most courses we've sold in a day. Yeah. And it was the same thing. And so it's not that smaller views is bad. It's that quality views are good. So it's not that, it's not an excuse to do, to have like low viewership. If you have a greater potential, you should explore that. But there are multi-million-dollar businesses that can be built on top of a media operation that gets a couple hundred views per video once a week. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's very easy to lose sight of what matters. I remember REtipster back in the high traffic heyday was getting about 200,000 unique visitors a month. And I think
on your website?
Yeah, on like the REtipster.com website. And I think it was in like the summer of 2019, I think it was, when Google updated something and we lost like 40% of our traffic overnight.
Yeah.
And I was devastated because I thought like 40% of my income is going away or whatever.
Which it probably was.
Well,
at that time.
It wasn't actually.
Okay.
Though. The traffic never recovered, and it's actually gone way down even since then. But the income was not relational to that at all. It's almost like Google figured out, hey, these people don't actually want to see what Seth is talking about. Like, that's not even quality traffic.
Interesting.
And
I see your point.
And it's I think to your point with like the video thing as well. Like, totally. There was a video I made about a year and a half ago about how we fixed our parking lot at the storage facility.
Yes.
And it was a very niche thing. Like, there's only a small set of people in the world ever who are going to have to deal with this problem. But like, I kind of nailed the solution. Like, it was if you've been there, you know how frustrating it is. And I could really speak that language and explain what we did. And like the people who need to see this video totally eat it up.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I got to tell you, like, as a content creator, it's a very gratifying thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that I'm making money from this video, because I'm not really, but it's just I love that I could nail that problem for somebody. Like,
totally
save them years of wasted time and money. And I'm sure we've all had that before, but we've seen a video where it's like, I got this problem, and this video just totally solved my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a great feeling. Like, I love that. It's a ton of fun.
One of the metrics on YouTube that I think that you should look at on your content, that'll just blow your hair back when you see it, because it'll explain a lot of things about the performance of some videos versus others, is the share. How many times a video gets shared, how to spot bad land in 60 seconds, how to similar launch. In fact, it was still in the last 10 videos that we did. So I see where it was on the scatter plot. Something happened about 4 hours in where sometimes when I supervise the metrics of a new video, because I want to see if I'm getting the right CTR, you can kind of see and fine tune some of that. I was doing some minor surgery, some cosmetic surgery on the video title and the thumbnail of the most recent one yesterday, literally when I was checking into my hotel, because the CTR was just flatlining. But on that video, how to spot bad land, I knew that I saw something I'd never seen before, which I saw it had the first 500 views it got. It was like 6 hours in. It was pretty good. And I looked at the shares, which I normally would do later. I don't look at shares that much, but I know that it's important. So sometimes I'll look at it. And it had 92 shares on 500 views.
Wow, man.
Which means that 500 people watched it. And of the 500 viewers, 92, about 20% of all the first 500 viewers, they clicked the link share and they texted it to a friend who also watched it.
So share means texting it, emailing it, social media. Like just the link shows up somewhere else?
I think it's when you click the share button. I don't know if they score the share only if someone opens it. I think what it is when you go on the YouTube video player, there's next to the like or subscribe, there's a share. So I think it's when someone shares and copies or sends the link out. I don't know if it requires that someone watches it to count it. I would guess it doesn't. It's just the share itself is what is counted. Yeah. And that's when I was like, this is going to be different. And the thing about the share on that video was, it was like how to spot bad land in 60 seconds, an audacious title where you can deliver on it, where you actually deliver the solution. It's like, here's an analytical process, 6 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's called assess. You run this process and you can spot bad land to make sure you don't offer on it so you can focus on the good property down the way. But the thing about sharing and virality of these videos on YouTube over time, it's not about shock and awe. It's not about like, burning building, or like the market's crashing, It's sometimes what gets shared as much as a good story or a good joke is like a flashlight. Like, it's like the utilitarian side of everything. Sometimes what gets shared is like a shovel, or like I said, cars, or like a golf cart. If you live in like one of those communities in Florida, you like share things that get you from A to B on something. So the content that I'm interested in making now is, I like the traffic and I like the viewership, but what I'm seeing is spending more time on longer videos that I can do in just one take, in one cut all the way through. We just overlay B-roll on top, just like this, exactly like this, what we're doing. We're going to put B-roll and production in, but like we took a bathroom break, like there's going to be a cut there. That's it. And so the stuff where it's like, here's what it actually is. Here's what, like, actually the recording unvarnished. And you tell a story and you solve a problem on a deeper level for a more specific audience. It's like how to buy your first piece of land step by step, something like that. And that's an upcoming video where it's not going to get the big launch, but it's going to get the big watch time. It's going to solve the big problem for a small audience. And then that's the type of video that over time it's going to grow very predictably. Sometimes the videos in our library that pop quickly, they are early bloomers, and and it's not as durable. The durable videos are the ones that, like, beginner's guide to buying land. It's like most people aren't going to click it. YouTube doesn't know what to do with it. It's like not sexy. Yeah. But then what ends up happening is over time, people self-select. The metrics are good. The engagement's great. Then it grows. Yeah.
Where do you think your Acrewell media YouTube channel business, where do you think that's going? Like 3-5 years from now? Like, what does your ideal future look like?
Well, I think I'll be doing cool projects and doing events, doing some coaching, mainly, doing some of the free content on YouTube. I don't know how much I'm even going to branch out to the other platforms, honestly. And that's an open question. So I think what I'm interested in is empowering people with, like, packaged education on, like, sort of like high value skills in the context of real estate. I mean, buying land is the first and most important of the types of products that we'll put out and the types of services we'll offer. But I'm sure that as I grow in my skill set, just like you've grown in terms of the commercial and the self-storage stuff, your audience follows you on that. They want to understand what you're doing. And as I grow as a professional and my skill set gets more diversified, there's more niche product offerings, service offerings, coaching offerings that I can make through that. So right now it's like, short term, and I'll answer the 3 to 5 years. The short term is really creating like the Rosetta Stone for land buyers, because buying land is kind of like a language. Don't worry, it's a lot easier than learning Spanish or Portuguese, way easier. But it's still, there's terms. And so the terminology, the connective tissue of how these ideas intersect, how to go from A to B to C to D on your first land purchase successfully, there's a little bit of a language that you have to learn. And so creating a education product that's like a closed loop product that you can put in front of anybody that's willing to learn and that they can be successful. That's really what we're doing now. And then you really see a lot of demand for community, a lot of demand for people that they want you to hold their hand. And right now, the only reason I don't have time to do that is because I'm focused on getting the YouTube channel up and running. It's a lot of my bandwidth to do these videos. We're remastering the course, so we're re-recording and remastering that product. So there's like some product development work that's even happening. So I don't even really have the bandwidth, but I think in the near term, really building community and going deeper with people on problem solving and coaching and mentorship is going to be something that I'll want to explore. It could be events and masterminds. It could be an ongoing, a sort of a group coaching, a small group coaching platform. So that's something that I think is going to be in the cards for the next 12 months. We'll start doing something like that. But I want to do cool stuff, and I want to show people how to do cool stuff, and not always from the standpoint of being an investor and making money, because anybody can make $20,000. In fact, your first 12 months as an entrepreneur, you may as well be a barista at Starbucks. You're going to make more money. And that's not throwing shade at people that work in Starbucks. It's like a good job. $32,000 is a lot of money. Like, I'm not trivializing that at all. I'm just telling you that they're going to out earn you. Because as an entrepreneur, it's long periods of time with no reward, long periods of time with no security or guarantees. All the while, you only have so much in your bank account, and the floor is coming up at you, and you're like, this might not work out. So the business side of all of this, I have a lot to offer. I have a lot of ideas and opinions, but there's a lot of people in the real estate market that they just want to buy their first property. They want to build a home. Or they want to buy a property, invest, and build a home in 5 years. And they just need a flashlight to do that, a toolkit to understand how to really do that. And so unlocking that ability for people so that they can live in a more intentional way, that they can acquire property and design their life, design their physical environment, build a home just like this beautiful home here on acreage, and live close to nature and live on a property in an environment that inspires them. I think that's really what I'm interested in the short term.
Yeah. Well, I think you definitely have space for a community. I mean, the number of comments this guy gets on his videos is crazy. Like, it's just awesome to see the engagement. And I haven't even really read through them. I don't know what they're talking about, if they're arguing with each other or just like saying awesome or what. But yeah, it just shows me like people want community. Like, they have things to say. They want to be heard. They want to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So I think there's definitely something there. Well, Alex, it has been a pleasure to have you over and to have this fireside chat. I've learned a lot. It's been great to get to know you over the past few weeks. If there's a land investor out there or somebody who's even, a consumer looking to buy land. They don't want to be a land flipper. They're just looking for property. Any closing thoughts? Anything like that?
Well, I would suggest to them to do what I did, which is, and I'm not kidding, I would watch REtipster. If you're watching this and you want to understand how to buy land, you gotta look at the top land buyers in the country. And so Seth is a guy that I've learned a lot from. I've learned a lot from a lot of the educators, Steve and Jill, Ron and Dan, and a lot of other people I don't want to leave out. But it's a very small world. So if we can be a part of that and we can contribute to the education and the knowledge base out there, I'd be grateful to even be counted next to someone like Seth, who's really paved the way for a lot of us. So watch these videos, watch REtipster. If you are interested in learning more about our information, go on our channel. That's Acrewell Land Company on YouTube. That's my only social media, I think. I might have an old Facebook if you know where to find it. But basically, that's where you find me. Seth, thanks so much for having me over and hosting me. It's been a beautiful day, and I hope that this interview has gone over well with the audience. I hope you guys have taken some value from it. I certainly enjoyed being here.
Absolutely. And thank you for flying all the way out here. I was not expecting that, but hey, I don't often get this opportunity. I will be sure to link to Alex's YouTube channel beneath this video. Also, if you want to check out the show notes, retipster.com/244, because this is episode 244. Alex, thank you again. Wish you all the best in your continued success. And I look forward to seeing where the business takes you.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.